Now, Sarah, I am really, really, really looking forward to talking to you today. But before I start, let me just introduce you. Your name is Sarah Roberts. I was about to say Robertson then. I'm such an idiot. Sarah Roberts, not Sarah Galaxy Tab A7, as it says.
No, that's not me.
And basically, we connected on Instagram, didn't we?
We did.
And then we had a chat last week on the phone, and your story so far, I'm going to say, is pretty emotional. And basically we decided that we would then share your story with everybody else, because you think maybe you can help others by highlighting what you've been through.
Yeah.
So tell me, well, where do we begin? Should we go right back?
If you want to, yeah. Okay, so I basically started fainting in school when I was sort of like day 1, day 2 of my period, when I was about 14. Very, very, very heavy periods where I dreaded going into school because I would come through, I would wear 2 pairs of tights, 2 pairs of knickers, lots of sanitary towels, because I would just be so, I'd be so heavy, and the pains would be unbearable, where I would pass out in class, I would be sick in the playground, and I fainted on the track field, and I spent half of the day at the tuck shop trying to eat as much chocolate as I could to get as much energy into me, just to get myself through until home time. At
this point, how old were you?
I was about 14, I think. I think I was year 9, year 10.
And you thought this was just what periods were?
Well, I mean, I was very blessed. My mum used to sit me down and talk to me all about periods and sex, and you know, she was very, very open. So I was very lucky in that respect. But I just, because people talk about period pain, like women have period pain, I just assumed that was period pain. And I suppose I look back and I think in an unjust way, I was very hard on myself, because I thought, why am I the only person that can't cope with a period? Why is, you know, what on earth is the matter with me? So I used to sort of cheer myself along and just think, you know, everyone else gets on with it. And I think in them days, you know, maybe I had a different circle of friends there. Obviously we grow up, you accept who you are more, so you are more open. So the conversations I have now with my best friends, I would never have had as a teenager. And you didn't talk about your period. I was always very aware and very insecure about it. I was very embarrassed. I think I developed very young as well. So, you know, I was big boobs and, you know, but still a very sort of teenager sort of body. So I used to hide away from boys, because it was just a very, very difficult time. When I started fainting and having severe diarrhea in school, to the point where I just didn't want to go into school that week of my period, my mum was like, this is not normal, we need to get you to the doctors. And so we went to the GP, a lovely GP, I have to say, she was lovely, she listened. I can't really remember, if I'm completely honest, if I told her how severe my periods were, because I was embarrassed by them. But I did explain that, you know, my symptoms, I was bleeding heavy, I had these big clots where I felt as though my insides were coming out, but I didn't understand what they were. And the worst thing was with the diarrhea, because obviously in school with, you know, toilets that were shared and stuff, it was just, I just couldn't cope. So she put me on the pill at that age, and I was really left on that until I was probably getting on for 20.
Did she explain to you when you went to the doctor? I mean, these are severe symptoms, aren't they?
Yeah. Well, I look back now and they were very, very severe, but at the time I thought, well, because she said, unfortunately, this is what being a woman is, you know, welcome to the world of being a woman, you know, we've got to suck it up and see. So I did, and it's not until I got later on in life, and it wasn't until I unfortunately started this journey of trying for a baby, and my treatment's failing, so I then had to go and sort of find answers myself, and I went to an acupuncturist who specializes in fertility, and she said, you know, explain what your periods are like, you know, tell me. And I explained, and she was like, oh God, this is not normal. A period, you bleed, you stop, that's a period. Everything that I described to her, she's just said that's just it's abnormal. She said you're stagnant, you're holding on to, your body's holding on to your period. So I'd have about 5 days before I actually used to come on my period where I had this really stagnant brown stain, and it was awful. But I just thought my body was trying to come on its period, because you're not taught about this. Nobody tells you what your periods are meant to be. You know.
So what was that then before your period?
So she said it was stagnation. So it was from I think how she described it was from my period before that my body was holding on to it. So it was a little bit like, it was like brown mud. And I remember now I've not always had that. I'd say I've had that in the past 8 or 9 years. And I just thought your body changes. I'd had a coil fitted, because I had other gynae problems in my 20s. So I'd had a coil fitted and I'd had that taken out. And I thought maybe that's just, you know, the aftermath of having a coil. And when it first came, I thought it was poo, if I'm being honest with you. And I was like, oh my God. And it, you know, it wasn't. And when I described it to her, she was like, no, that's just not normal. That's not what a period is. A period is your lining going, and you bleed, and you finish your period, and that is it. You shouldn't have, you know, people have period pains, but you shouldn't have period pains where you are rolling around in agony. Yeah, just albeit bearable pain.
So this was your fertility, this was an acupuncturist, did you say?
Yeah, so when I'd been to, so I'd had Clomid for a few years, and I'd had 1 round of IVF on the NHS, so that was 18 months ago. It was June, just as we were into the pandemic, and it failed. And I was about to start a second cycle, and one of my patients, actually, she was going through IVF, and we sort of connected, and she said, you know, you want to start looking at Zeta West. She's this fabulous lady. She's got a clinic down in London, and have a look on that, on her website. So I started following this, and I didn't feel 100% connected, because I think in my head I hadn't actually come to terms with the fact I'd been told I couldn't have a baby, and I think it takes me a long time to absorb that sort of information. And I didn't know anybody else who'd been through this. Unbeknownst to me, I didn't realise how common, unfortunately, this is. So as I googled Zeta West, I found that she has these affiliated acupuncturists dotted around the country. And I was so lucky, because the lady I go to is Zeta West affiliated, and I found her. In fact, I believe she found me, actually, and she's affiliated by Zeta West. And yeah, I think I'd say that's the beginning of my journey of healing, really, and of coming to terms and actually understanding my body.
But why did it take you having a round of Clomid and a round of IVF before somebody actually said, hang on, you've got endometriosis?
Nobody's ever told me. No one's ever told me. It's only my acupuncturist that when I described it to her, she said, oh, when were you diagnosed with endometriosis? But I've never actually had a GP or a doctor diagnose me or test me for it.
So when the doctor said, yes, okay, IVF is the right route for you to parenthood, or at least let's try it. Yeah. Did they explain why? What did they say was your infertility cause?
So my infertility is called unexplained infertility. That's it. That's all I've ever been told.
So did they talk to you about your periods and
No.
That makes me want to scream.
Yeah, there's been a lot of tears and a lot of screaming over this. Yeah.
So they just said unexplained. So unexplained infertility. So there was never talk about your cycles, how they were.
They asked me about my periods, and I said I am, because I was like clockwork. Every 28 days I was, and I could tell you, I mean my husband could tell you, when I was going to come on my period. I had symptoms, and I could, because of the symptoms I had and the job I do, I was very lucky that I can actually sort of plan my own clinics. I would plan my clinics and patients around my periods, and I would think, well, I won't book heavy duty
Because you're a nurse, aren't you?
because I know that I can cope with doing simple, quick treatments on patients. If I have to dash to the toilet, run and go and get a chocolate bar, go and have a sit down for 5 minutes, I could get through the day. But they just asked me, you know, do you have periods? And I do. I used to have regular periods, and I think that's when I never thought I would never get pregnant, because my body had been so cruel to me. I just thought, well, oh my goodness, the minute we start trying, we'll get caught immediately, because I have a period every month and they're that painful, you know. I must be, you know, do you know what I mean? It never occurred to me that my body was actually trying to tell me something was wrong, and I had medicine. They said I wasn't ovulating. So I was referred to the clinic quite late, really, because we sort of we got married a little bit later. We changed jobs, we started different careers, and we just wanted an extra 2 years. So we didn't start trying till I was about 32, just as I was qualifying. And then I think I just went to the GP for something very random, and she said, "Oh, are you going to have babies?" And I said, "Oh, well, we're trying. You know, we're not using any contraception anymore, and as and when." And then I went back 12 months later for something else, and she said, "Oh," so that was when she referred me. I just assumed it would happen when it happened, very ignorantly. But again, you're not really taught that at school. You're not really.
No, of course.
You know, you're told how not to get pregnant.
Oh my God, I know, which makes you want to scream.
Yeah.
When your first round of IVF failed, and I hate the word fail. I'm sorry to use that word.
Well, it did, yeah.
But when you went back to the clinic to have your, you know, a discussion about what happens and what your next steps are, can you remember what they said to you?
So they were very sorry that it hadn't worked. I'd been told that my embryo was perfect. That was what they told me. It was a perfect embryo. It was a perfect transfer, and you know, we all hope for the best. And I rung them about 4 or 5 days later, and I said, I'm bleeding, but I don't. I mean, you pray to anything out of there that it's implantation bleeding. In my heart, I knew it wasn't. It was heavy. They still made me wait for the 2 weeks to do the pregnancy test, and they just said, "Yeah, we're very sorry, it's not worked." I had a Zoom call then with the consultant, and he, you know, and you have to feel sorry for them. It must be, you know, it's awful news to give people, and I do sympathise with them. And he just said, you know, we can have another go. At that point, they just discussed having another go and trying sort of as soon as possible. So we had another go. My body, I know now through various blood tests that I've had done and paid privately through other companies, through sort of the holistic route, my body was in no fit state to carry an embryo ever. It stood no chance whether it was perfect or not. But we had another go, and at that point I'd started to look at acupuncture, and I'd got in contact with my acupuncturist, and I said, "Am I a little bit too late?" She said, "Well, whatever we can do, we can work with what we've got at the moment." And then at that point, just as I was going for my egg collection, I hadn't stimulated enough. I hadn't responded well to the drugs, even though I was on the highest dose of drugs. So it was abandoned just before egg collection.
And had endometriosis, the word, been brought up? So it still hadn't been brought up. Did you have any like further investigations, any other tests or?
So the only tests I've ever had done with the clinic is to check my AMH, which was to check if my egg reserve, and I was told it was 1.6, I think, and that must be about 3 years ago. That was the only test they'd ever recommended. I'd never had, and obviously to see if I ovulated, which was before I had Clomid, but they were the only tests that were ever discussed.
But they didn't look for any, you know, tests that show that there's scarring or blockages or anything like that.
Oh, I had, is it called a hycosia? I had that done. I had that done before I had Clomid, and it showed that I had a tube blocked, but they weren't worried because my other tube was working. So they said at that point they don't worry if one tube is working.
It just seems crazy, doesn't it? That endometriosis has still not come up in conversation. Did you not say to them, look, I think I've got endometriosis?
No, because I didn't. I never for one moment thought I did, because I just thought that was what a period was. It was only once I started seeing the acupuncturist, and if I'm being honest, it was probably too late down the line of IVF in the middle of a pandemic. You know, I'd mentioned about having my tube unblocked, and the consultant said we could have a go at that, but because of the waiting list now, because of the pandemic, all the elective surgeries are on hold, and I work in a general hospital myself, so I completely understand those pressures. He said, we're probably not going to gain much from that, so but the only other time I'd ever been told it looked like I had scarring was when I'd had a funny smear test when I was a lot younger, and it was when I started to have a lot of gynae problems in the 20s, which were quite severe. I couldn't have intercourse for about 6 years because it was just so painful. So they sent me for counselling to see if I'd had trauma as a child or something like that. But I was like, no, it's a physical pain. It's not, this is a physical pain and feeling. And it was only until I saw, about 6 years later, saw a GP with a specialist interest in gynae. She said, I think you've been on the pill far too long. And then she said the scarring was from the years of the pill. She said it was just too long to be on the pill, but I couldn't function without it.
Where has that left you now? Like, you say you're seeing your acupuncturist. How is your body now?
I think my body's probably the healthiest it's ever been. I've done a lot of research. I've used my acupuncturist to help guide me into healing mentally, physically, emotionally, I suppose spiritually in a way. And I've found other ladies that look after me and have tried everything they can to try and help my body recover and try naturally to have my baby.
How do you now not have, the sickness, the fainting, all those horrific side effects that you used to have? How do you not have those?
Acupuncture. So I had one, so it was August, so it was 18 months ago in August. It was not August, just been, sorry, the year before. And I went to her for one visit, and it was a bit like a counselling session to begin with, and then you have a treatment afterwards for your first appointment. And she did one treatment on me, and I've never had a period like it since.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is incredible.
Yeah.
I have to say, I used acupuncture on my last and final round of IVF. Yeah. And just as you said that, I used my acupuncturist like my counsellor.
Yeah. She's she should be bottled and given to every single lady on the entire planet. She's just incredible.
So wonderful then that what she's doing for you is actually easing the symptoms of endometriosis.
Yeah. So I don't bleed like I used to. The stagnation went within that so my first period after acupuncture, I actually messaged her. I thought, I don't know actually if this is a period, because it just wasn't a period that I was used to. It was what she'd said: you'll come on your period, you'll bleed red blood, and you will finish, and that was it. And it was the only thing that changed with my periods is they became a lot longer. And I don't think that's to do with the acupuncture. I think that's actually what she's done for me. Is she's basically unravelled 26 years of misdiagnosis, contraceptive pill, hormones, and all of that. I feel as though she's unravelled me, and I've gone back to what I would have been. I feel as though this is what I would have had if I hadn't had those periods. So
that is very emotional, actually.
yeah, it's been a journey. I mean, she's changed my life. She's changed my entire life. My hormones, the way I deal with things, the way I see the world, the way everything I am and do now is because of her.
Oh my gosh, what's her name?
Her name is Jackie Fairweather.
Jackie Fairweather.
Yeah, but I call her my angel. She is my angel.
Amazing.
Yeah,
and I suppose your hindsight would then be, you know, if only Jackie had been in your life all those years ago.
Yeah.
But, and we always say, you know, hindsight's a great thing. We can't use our own. But actually, so would you then encourage young people to go and see an acupuncturist, you know, if they're in a similar situation that you're in?
Yeah. I mean, my best friend and I, who she's cried just as many tears as I have over this. And we always say, you know, if someone had stood in a school hall, you know, a small group of girls, you know, take a class at a time and stood and held a sanitary towel up and said, if your sanitary towel looks anything like this, you come and see us, because this isn't normal and it's not embarrassing. You don't have to be scared. It's confidential. We won't, you know, it's not gonna, you know, the playground aren't gonna know about it, but come and see us, because it's not normal. And it's your body's way of telling you you're poorly. Because I was poorly. I was ill. I'd say 6 months out of my every year was lost because of period symptoms, because I would have symptoms a week before my period, and then horrific symptoms of my period. So, you know, 26 years I suffered with that. So that's 13 years of suffering.
Are you part of any endometriosis support groups or anything like that?
No, I mean, I follow a few online, but because I've never had that diagnosis, I'm a bit reluctant to say I've got endometriosis. But from what I've read and from what I've been told, I believe I probably have had a form of it. But I do follow people on Instagram.
Yes. Yeah. It's just hearing your story, the thing that really upsets me is almost the fact that you were just dismissed by your GP.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes I was put on the pill because I've got polycystic ovaries. No one actually really explained to me what polycystic ovaries meant.
No.
I was just told, right, okay, so your periods are irregular. Okay, go off you go, take the pill.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I just I didn't know what was happening. You know, just took it, and then years later couldn't figure out why I couldn't get pregnant.
And it's your body, but your body's trying to, and you're disconnected from your body. They disconnect you because, you know, if your leg hurts, there's a reason why your leg hurts. If your head hurts, there's a reason why your head hurts. But it's just all masked, and this is the consequence. You know, I've just turned 40, and I'm about 5 years through this journey, and I've still not got a baby to show for it, which is, when I was little and everybody was asking, you know, when you're asked what you want to be when you're older, my answer was always, I want to be a mum. That's all I ever want. I always ever wanted to be a mum. I was still playing with dolls by the age of 12 because I just wanted to be a mum, and that's all I've ever wanted. So.
Do you know, honestly, I love that you've just said that, because I was still playing with dolls when I was 12.
Yeah.
loud to anybody, and I love that you've just,
Yeah.
that's all I ever wanted.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are you ovulating now? You said you weren't ovulating.
So I believe I do now, because I have, so I see, and so through my acupuncturist, she put me in touch with another lady that does sound bath meditation, which I'd never heard of before. And if anybody is ever thinking about doing it, go and do it. It's such an amazing experience. And I told her name's Sean, and I told her what my problems were, and she has been working on me for about 9 months now. I go maybe once a month, maybe two or three times a month, maybe, depending on money and where I am, in life. But I go and see her regularly, and she will do these sound. She uses sound bowls and the healing of sound, and she will work on me, and it's very painful. Not so much now, but it has been in the past. And
how,
through that, sorry.
how is it painful?
Um, it feels as though someone's stabbing you
Oh my God.
in a nice way, in a very nice way. You feel sort of flutters and sort of pinchy. You feel pinchy in areas where you're blocked, and her sound and instruments unblock you. So
Wow.
she works around your chakras, she will work around your aura. So the first time I went, it was all in my head, and it was sort of here and in my head. And gradually it's gone all the way down, and it's only now ever around my ovaries, the tops of my legs. And I know that she's unblocking me. So through her, I now believe I ovulate, because I have ovulation symptoms. I never knew you had discharge. I've never had discharge, and now I have the eggshell ovulation discharge, and I have that very, very regularly. And I've had that now for about 4 months, 4 or 5 months. I've had ovulation discharge, and I've never ever had that before.
What's on the ovulation sticks?
Pardon?
You know, the ovulation
I
sticks.
don't tend to use those, only because I just don't tend to use those. I've been trying to go with my gut instinct and what my body is sort of showing me monthly. And then I bought a Ava bracelet. I don't know if you've ever heard of those.
Yeah.
And I use one of those, and that predicts my ovulation, and it goes day by day around. It tells me when I'm ovulating, and my discharge is mapping that as well. So I feel using my body and my Ava app, that's really helped me.
Yeah. It's what's so fascinating is to hear you now so in control of your body. So
Yeah.
you've gone from having your body control you with absolutely no support around you to now you being in control, and having people close by that are really looking out for you, and people that are understanding your body. And that's just so encouraging and inspiring. It just makes me want to not lose you, because I want to keep going with you. I can't wait to be there.
Yeah.
You phone me and you say, Sarah, it's worked.
I can't wait for that day either.
You said you know that day is coming, didn't you, on the phone?
I've seen a baby. I've been told off because I've only ever really seen a girl. And a lady got in contact with my acupuncturist, because I blog on an Instagram site. It's a private one that I just use for myself, and that I try and support other women with as well. But I don't have my friends and family on that. That's my sacred space. And this lady must have followed me through my acupuncture lady, and she said, tell her to stop with the girl, she might be blocking a boy. So when I go to sound bath now, I have a boy teddy, and I have a girl teddy that I take with her. So I've got Babs and Barney, and they come with me, and they have a cuddle, and we heal together, and we visualize me being their mum. And that's what I feel is what's been the biggest thing that's working for me, away from the clinics. I've been told that they'll never do IVF on me again with my own eggs, because the last, so I had another course of IVF in June last year. They gave me DHEA to try and raise my testosterone, but it ended in an eggless egg collection, which I'd never understood really, but there were no eggs in the follicles. So they said they won't do that again. So my only other option with IVF is to have an egg donor, which I've found the hardest to hear, and it's taken me a long time to come to terms with that. But it's funny because just behind me here there's a little plaque that I look at every day, and it's from Beatrix Potter. It's Jemima Puddle Duck, and she says, I wish to hatch my own eggs, and I will hatch them all by myself. And I use that as an affirmation every day to tell my body that I am 40, but I'm working now more than my body's ever worked before, and I'm just not ready to give up on myself and my eggs. So whether I need an egg donor, I might do, but at the moment I'm trusting myself, and I'm trusting my journey, and I'm trusting what, I don't feel as though this has happened to me for no reason. I feel as though I've had to heal to be the person I am today, to probably be the best mum I can ever be, and to hold my baby and thank God every day that I've been blessed, and that's how I feel. So yeah.
I need to have a picture of Jemima Paddle Duck. I think that is such a beautiful affirmation, and such a lovely thing that you do every day.
Yeah.
You're so inspiring, Sarah. Really, really, really are. I'm just, and listen, I need to just look, you're also so beautifully kind, because you made this for me, didn't you?
I did, my little rainbows.
Tell us about the rainbows.
So last year, after my abandoned IVF, I had a 3-month period. It didn't stop. I was beyond broken, physically, mentally, emotionally. I was broken. I couldn't, it wouldn't stop. I was on lots of hormones through the clinic to try and stop the period. I was having regular acupuncture, and my acupuncturist said, you know what, as much as it's awful, she said, I do believe your body's just having an almighty clear out. And I trusted her. But through the hormone treatment that I was having through the clinics, I felt as though I was getting depressed. I was off work because I couldn't function. I couldn't treat children and do the job I do and look after children, and be in charge of tools, feeling the way I did. I had nothing in me. So I was off work for a while, and I felt as though I was getting depression, which I've never had before. And it was just this thick cloud of smoke, and I could see you, but I couldn't focus. I just couldn't focus. And I thought, I've got to get back to work. This is, my babies need me, my service need me. I've got to get back to work. What on earth am I going to do? Am I ever going to get better? Am I ever going to stop bleeding? I was just lost. So I looked on YouTube and looked at sort of crafty things, and I've never been crafty or arty in my life. That is just not me. I leave all that to my husband. And I thought, maybe if I can just do something to make and focus. So I started making the rainbows for family, for myself, and I just used to leave them to one side, unravel them again. And then I thought, because I know rainbows are, when I see sort of IVF stories on Instagram, people tend to have these little rainbows. And I thought, I'm going to use one of those for my next round of IVF. And then I thought, maybe I could sell them and donate some of the money to yourselves, because I feel as though you've got to give back to our community. I think we're women, we're girls, and we should all be supporting girls. And what you do with your Instagram has taught me a lot. It's inspired me a lot. And so for me, I just wanted to give a bit back to you. So I sell them on Instagram, and I love making them. And the one I've made for you, I thought, it's the pineapple sign. So that is, that's for our community, that one. Yeah, that's ours.
I just love it so much. And like you said, so the ones you sell, you're donating a small percentage to Babel Giving, which is the IVF Babel charity, which is
Yeah.
so kind of you.
Yeah.
You are honestly, Sarah, an amazing woman.
Thank you.
And I really hope that people watching this, you know, can pass it on as well to perhaps, you know, younger women in their families who don't yet know what's really happening with their body and might recognize some of the things that you've said, and
Yeah.
go to their doctor and say, look, this is what I'm experiencing. Can you test me? Can you help me understand what's going on?
Yeah.
And then, like you said, reach out to perhaps, you know, an acupuncturist who can help.
Yeah.
They've helped you.
Absolutely. And a nutritionalist. I mean, I found a nutritionalist who's all about women's health, hormones, and she's been very, very helpful. And through her, I've had various blood tests. This blood test I had basically looked under what was going on from a cellular level, and that it showed that I was racked with inflammation. I had masses of inflammation. So now I take an oil every day, and that has helped regulate my hormones. I've done another blood test since taking it. It's brought my inflammation levels right the way down. So I know now when I get pregnant, I should say, my body is in the best place it can be. But no one tells you in the clinics, no one tells you about omega-3 being so key in fertility and pregnancy. And that most of us have got inflammation because of today's diet, not through any fault of our own, but just because of the way food's produced. No one's ever told me that. Vitamin D. I mean, I was taking omega-3, and it still wasn't enough for me to not have inflammation in my body. So there's just so much. There's so much I've learned, and there's so much to learn. But it's so hidden. And because it's not the norm, and it's not, you know, because my doctor didn't tell me about it.
Yes.
You know, it's not sort of mainstream.
Yeah. It would be really lovely to catch up with you in a few months' time, just so that we can share again with people watching, you know, where you are again, and to see how your acupuncture and the sound healing is helping. I think that would be a really lovely thing to follow your journey to motherhood. Sarah, I want to say thank you again.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
Now, I'll put underneath the videos some links where people can find you. So what's your Instagram account that people can...
So my Instagram account is My Secret Infertility Journey. And it's got, this is the picture, which is a little heart with another affirmation which says, remember, you are braver than you believe, stronger than you feel, and smarter than you think. So that's my Instagram. And my rainbow page is called Bessie and Jessie, which are named the little rag dolls, and they're named after my nans, who both had fertility journeys themselves. One of my nans had a miscarriage, was told she'd never have a baby again, adopted my uncle, and then she was blessed with my dad.
Oh my.
And then, I know. And then my mum's mum had a baby with spina bifida, and he died after being 2 weeks old. So I just feel as though they're both with me on this journey, and I wanted to pay tribute to them through my little rainbow page. So
you are a beautiful human. You really are.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Right, this is just the beginning.
It is, yes.
All right, darling. Thank you.
You're very welcome.